They insult you. They leave you. They lie to you. But what if I told you, they can't truly hurt you unless you let them? The Stoics knew this over 2,000 years ago. And today, I'll show you why nothing can affect you, once you master these 10 timeless principles. Life is full of chaos. People disappoint us. Plans fall apart. Pain is inevitable. But suffering? That's a choice. The ancient Stoics Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they faced war, exile, betrayal, and death. Yet they remained unshaken. How? Through principles carved in silence, practiced in hardship. Today, I'll share with you 10 Stoic principles so powerful, that once you understand them, nothing, no insult, no failure, no loss can truly affect you. 1. You control your mind, not the world. I remember one morning, years ago, when everything seemed to go wrong. I was in my late 40s. My car wouldn't start. I spilled hot coffee on my only clean shirt. I missed an important meeting at work. And just when I thought the day couldn't get any worse, I came home to find my teenage son arguing with his mother, slamming doors, saying things no father ever wants to hear. I sat there in silence, completely drained. At that moment, I felt like the whole world was against me. Everything, people, machines, even time seemed out of control. And worse, I felt helpless, powerless, angry. But later that night, when things had quieted down, I picked up a small book a friend once gave me, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I opened it randomly and read, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I read that line 5 times. 10 times. Slowly. Letting it sink in. That was the moment something shifted inside me. I realized I'd spent most of my life trying to control things I never truly could. My job. My kids. The weather. People's opinions. Their moods. Their mistakes. I was fighting storms that were never mine to calm. But my mind? My thoughts? My reactions? That was mine. So I started small. The next morning, when traffic was backed up and I felt my jaw tighten, I whispered to myself, "This isn't about traffic. This is about how I choose to feel right now." When someone cut me off in the parking lot, I paused, took a breath, and reminded myself, they control their actions. I control my peace. It wasn't easy. It never is. But day by day, I noticed something. The world didn't change. People still acted rudely. Deadlines still got missed. Kids still said hurtful things. But I didn't break anymore. And that was real power. You see, we often think strength means being able to push harder, yell louder, do more. But the Stoics taught something different. Real strength is inner stillness. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need the world to behave in order to stay calm. And maybe you've felt like me. Maybe you've had days where nothing goes right, and the weight of the world sits on your chest. If so, I hope you hear this: you can't control the storm, but you can control the sail. The truth is, you don't need the world to bend in your favor. You just need to reclaim your mind. Start small. One breath at a time. One choice at a time. Choose to respond, not react. Choose peace over control. And over time, the chaos outside will lose its grip on the calm inside. And once you grasp this first Stoic truth, the rest begins to make sense. Because when you accept that you can't control everything, you also learn what truly matters. That brings us to the next lesson, one that changed the way I see pain and discomfort. Pain is inevitable. But suffering is a choice. 2. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. I used to think that pain was the enemy. When I was younger, I did everything I could to avoid it. I worked hard, tried to stay ahead, avoided conflict, kept people at arm's length just to protect myself. I thought if I played life safe, I could somehow escape the hurt. But pain still came. It came the day my father passed. It came when my best friend stopped returning my calls. It came in quiet ways too: loneliness, regret, moments when I looked in the mirror and wondered where the time went. I remember one night. I was sitting alone in my kitchen. The house was quiet. My kids had moved out. My marriage had ended the year before. And as I stirred a pot of soup, something inside me just broke. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. The memories, the could-haves, the what-ifs, all of them came rushing in. I dropped the spoon, leaned on the counter, and whispered, "Why does it still hurt?" That was when I remembered something I once read by Seneca: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. At first, I didn't understand. But that night, I did. The pain, the facts were real. I had lost things. I had made mistakes. That was life. But the suffering? That came from replaying those moments over and over in my head. From wishing it had been different. From resisting what had already happened. You see, pain visits us all. It knocks on every door, rich or poor, young or old. We can't avoid it. It's part of the human experience. But suffering is the story we tell ourselves about that pain. It's the echo we let grow louder. It's the resistance. The refusal to accept. The clinging to why me, and it's not fair. The Stoics didn't pretend pain wasn't real. They weren't cold or robotic. They just refused to give pain more power than it deserved. So I started practicing that. When something hurt, I didn't run. I didn't distract myself. I sat with it. I said, "This hurts. And that's okay." Then I breathed. I reminded myself, this is pain, but I don't have to suffer. And slowly, something changed. I became softer but not weaker. I became stronger but not harder. Because when you stop fearing pain, it loses its grip on you. And maybe you're carrying something too: a grief, a wound, a scar. If you are, I want to tell you this: you're not broken. You're just human. The pain may stay for a while. But the suffering? You can let it go. Gently. Slowly. With kindness. And when you do, you make space for something else, something the Stoics valued deeply. Clarity. Control. Calm. Which brings us to the next truth: focus only on what you can control. 3. Focus only on what you can control. I used to spend so much energy trying to control everything. My job. My finances. My children. The way people saw me. If something didn't go the way I planned, I blamed myself, or worse, I blamed others. And when things spun out of control, I felt like I was drowning in my own frustration. I remember one spring evening, my daughter called me from college, crying. She had failed an exam, felt lost, and said, "Dad, I don't know what I'm doing anymore." I tried to stay calm, offered advice, reminded her how smart she was. But after we hung up, I just sat there staring at the phone, helpless. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to make it all better. But I couldn't. That's when a quiet truth hit me: I can't live her life for her. I can't protect her from the world. And the more I tried to control what was never mine to control, the more I suffered. That night, I opened a small notebook where I'd copied quotes from the Stoics. And this one stood out: some things are up to us, and some are not. Epictetus. It's simple. But in those words is a lifetime of wisdom. You see, there are only a few things in this world that truly belong to us: our thoughts, our choices, our reactions. Everything else, what people say, what the market does, what storms roll in, that's not ours to hold. When I finally understood that, it was like putting down a heavy bag I didn't even know I'd been carrying. So now, when I feel anxious or overwhelmed, I pause and ask myself a simple question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, I let it go. And if the answer is yes, I act with calm and clarity. It's not about giving up. It's about letting go of illusions. Because pretending you can control everything is exhausting. But focusing only on what you can control, that's where peace lives. I began applying this to small things. When someone cut me off in traffic, I focused on my breath. When my boss raised his voice, I chose silence over argument. When plans changed, I chose acceptance over resistance. And you know what? Life didn't suddenly become perfect. But I became more steady, less reactive, more grounded. So if you're watching this, and you're tired of trying to hold the whole world together, take a breath. Put down what isn't yours. And hold tight to what is, your mind, your response, your next step. The Stoics knew that control isn't about power, it's about wisdom. And when you focus only on what you can control, you stop wasting your life on what you can't. And this clarity, this inner stillness, prepares you for what comes next, because life won't always go your way. There will be pain, discomfort, challenges. But what if you could welcome them? That's the next lesson. Expect hardship. Embrace it. For expect hardship. Embrace it. I used to believe that once I had everything figured out, my job, my family, my health, life would finally become smooth. That was the dream, wasn't it? Work hard, be a good person, save enough, and then, life would ease up. But reality has a different rhythm. Because no matter how careful you are, life still knocks. Sometimes gently. Sometimes like a punch to the gut. I still remember when I lost my job at 52. The company had downsized. I'd been there for almost 20 years. I gave it everything. Stayed late. Showed up early. Skipped vacations. And then, one Friday afternoon, I was handed a small box and a forced smile. That weekend, I sat in my garage, staring at old family photos, wondering, how did I end up here? It felt like failure. Like life had betrayed me. But over time, through long walks, late night journaling, and quiet reflection, I came to see something I hadn't seen before. The hardship was the lesson. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus was born into slavery. Seneca was exiled. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while grieving children he buried too young. And yet, they didn't curse their struggles. They leaned into them. They embraced them as training. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus, that line stayed with me. Because growth often looks like failure in the moment. Hardship isn't a punishment. It's preparation. It's life shaping you into something stronger, quieter, wiser. After I lost that job, I started waking up early, reading again, writing again, reconnecting with who I was before the titles, the meetings, the rush. And a year later, I found work I actually loved. It paid less but fed me more. And I'll say this plainly, if I hadn't lost everything, I would have never found myself. So now, when trouble comes, and it still does, I remind myself, this is the path. Not the detour. Hardship is the fire that burns away what isn't essential. It humbles you. Refines you. And if you let it, it transforms you. So if you're in a season of struggle, don't run from it. Don't curse it. Lean into it. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Because comfort may feel good, but it rarely changes you. Hardship does. And when you stop fearing the hard things, you begin to live with a new kind of freedom. A freedom that isn't shaken by storms because you've already walked through them. That's the Stoic way. And once you learn to embrace life's challenges, you'll begin to see something else clearly. everything, every success, every failure, even every pain is temporary. That's the next lesson we'll walk through, together. 5. Everything is temporary. There's a photo I keep in my wallet. It's old now, corners worn, colors faded. It's me and my 2 kids, standing in front of a rusty old camper we used to take out every summer. We didn't have much back then. Money was tight. The air conditioner barely worked. And we slept on creaky foam mattresses that made our backs ache in the morning. But we laughed. We huddled together during thunderstorms. We chased fireflies. We made memories I never thought would fade. And now, those little kids, they're grown. One's across the country, the other just got married. And that camper? Long gone. It hits me sometimes quietly, unexpectedly, how fast it all passed. The hard days I thought would never end. The sweet moments I thought would last forever. They're all temporary. That's one of the core teachings of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It sounds heavy, even dark. But to the Stoics, it wasn't morbid. It was freeing. Because when you truly realize that everything is temporary, the pain, the joy, the people, the seasons, something shifts inside you. You stop clinging. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You start living with more intention. I think about the nights I used to lie awake worrying about bills, or replaying awkward conversations in my head. Now I ask myself, will this matter in 5 years? Most of the time, the answer is no. Sometimes even 5 days is generous. When you embrace impermanence, you learn to let go faster. You forgive easier. You cherish more. That annoying coworker? One day, you'll barely remember their name. That ache in your chest? It will soften. That joy you feel in your grandchild's laugh? It won't last forever, so let it sink in, right now. Nothing lasts forever. And that includes the bad days too. When I was younger, I thought strength was about holding on. But now, in my 50s, I realize true strength is learning how to let go. Gently. Fully. Without regret. The Stoics didn't fear death because they learned to honor life. Not just the big milestones, but the tiny, quiet moments. Like the way sunlight hits the table in the morning. Or how your partner brushes your hand without thinking. Everything ends. And because it ends, it matters more. So take the picture. Say the words. Sit in silence with someone you love. Because right now, is already becoming a memory. And once you accept that nothing lasts, you're ready for the next truth the Stoics held close: live by nature. Live by virtue. 6. Live according to nature and virtue. A few years ago, I stood at the edge of a lake near my childhood home. It was early morning. Mist hovered over the water. Trees stood still, their reflections almost perfect. No noise. No hurry. Just stillness. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: aligned. Not with my schedule. Not with my phone. But with something older, quieter, something natural. The Stoics believed we should live according to nature. Not just the trees and the rivers, though they matter too. But our nature, who we are beneath the noise. Marcus Aurelius said, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." He meant we're not separate from the world. We're part of it. And when we live in a way that dishonors others, or ourselves, or the earth, we're out of tune. I spent a long part of my life chasing things that didn't matter. Promotions. Status. Looking successful. But I ignored the voice inside that said, "This isn't who you are." Virtue, to the Stoics, isn't about being perfect. It's about being true. True to what's honest. True to what's kind. True to what's wise. True to what takes discipline even when no one's watching. And when I started living that way, not to impress, but to align, I felt lighter. I didn't need to pretend. I didn't need to explain. I just needed to be. Living according to nature isn't about giving up ambition. It's about asking, is this ambition coming from the right place? Living by virtue isn't about judging others. It's about turning inward and asking, am I living in a way I respect? Because at the end of the day, only you know if you're doing the right thing. And when your actions match your values, there's a peace that nothing can buy. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It's quiet. Solid. Like standing by that still lake. So if you feel out of rhythm, maybe the answer isn't more noise, more hustle, more pressure. Maybe it's less. Less pretending. Less rushing. Less forcing things to be what they're not. Instead, ask, what would my most honest, wise, and disciplined self do right now? Do that. And do it again tomorrow. Live in harmony with your true self. That's the Stoic path. Not flashy. Not fast. But deeply, beautifully real. And once you begin walking that path, you'll find something else begins to shift. You'll get angry less. Because you'll realize anger is weakness, not strength. That's the next lesson we'll uncover together. 7. Anger is weakness, not strength. There was a time when I believed anger made me strong. When someone cut me off in traffic, I'd slam the horn and curse under my breath. When a coworker dismissed my idea in a meeting, I'd spend the rest of the day quietly stewing. And when my teenage son pushed my buttons, I'd raise my voice not because it helped, but because I didn't know what else to do. I thought being loud meant being in control. But the truth is, I was anything but. It wasn't until one evening after a heated argument with someone I loved that something inside me cracked. The silence that followed was louder than the shouting. And in that silence, I felt it clearly, I hadn't won. I'd lost. That night, I sat alone with a small book of Stoic reflections. I turned to a passage by Marcus Aurelius, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. And I realized, anger doesn't protect us. It poisons us. It doesn't make us strong. It reveals how fragile we've become. Because here's the hard truth, anyone can get angry. Anyone can explode. But real strength is staying calm when the world pushes your buttons. Real strength is being able to feel the fire rise inside you and choosing not to feed it. That doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become deliberate. The Stoics didn't ignore anger. They faced it. But they understood it for what it was, a signal, not a solution. I started practicing that. The next time someone spoke sharply to me, I paused. Instead of reacting, I asked myself, what's really behind their words? Are they hurting? Are they afraid? That small pause, just a breath or two, gave me space. Space to choose peace over pride. Compassion over control. And over time, something beautiful happened. My relationships softened. My stress dropped. My dignity grew. Because when you stop letting anger run your life, you start reclaiming your peace. It's not always easy. Even now, I slip. But when I do, I remind myself, anger is easy. Calm is earned. So if you find yourself rising in frustration, tightening your fists, feeling the words build behind your lips, try this: breathe. Pause. And ask yourself, is this who I want to be? If the answer is no, you already have the power to choose differently. The Stoics believed that control over the self is the highest form of power. Not control over others. Not control over outcomes. But over the impulses within. And when you master that, you no longer live for approval, or applause, or reaction. You begin to live from something deeper. Which leads us to the next lesson: don't seek approval. Seek inner alignment. 8. Don't seek approval. Seek inner alignment. I used to care a lot about what people thought of me. Every time I walked into a room, I wondered if I looked successful enough. Every word I said in meetings I replayed later, worried if I sounded smart. Even with friends, I sometimes agreed just to avoid conflict, even when my heart said otherwise. I thought that was connection. But it wasn't. It was performance. And the more I sought approval, the further I drifted from myself. It wasn't until a quiet conversation with an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years, that I started to realize what I'd been doing. We were sitting on his back porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. He looked over and said, "You know, you've always had this calm presence. But sometimes, it feels like you're trying to be what people want, not who you really are." I didn't say anything right away. Because deep down, I knew he was right. That night, I came across a line from Epictetus that pierced straight through me: if you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your integrity. It was hard to hear. But I needed to hear it. The Stoics believed that we're not here to be liked, we're here to live in alignment with our values. Approval from others comes and goes. One day, they praise you. The next, they forget your name. But when you live according to what you truly believe, with honesty, with courage, with clarity, that stays. Even in the silence. Even when no one's watching. So I started doing small things. Quiet things. I said no to invitations that didn't feel right. I shared my real thoughts, gently, even if they weren't popular. And more than anything, I stopped chasing applause. Instead, I asked myself, do I respect the way I showed up today? Sometimes, the answer was no. But that's okay, because the goal isn't perfection. It's honesty. And here's the truth I've come to learn: you can't truly be free until you stop performing for the crowd. Because the crowd, they change. They forget. They move on. But your conscience, that stays. That speaks. So ask yourself, not do they approve of me, but do I approve of me? The Stoics remind us that your life isn't a show. It's a quiet, sacred path. Walk it with integrity. Not for them. For you. And when you do, you'll begin to find a calm that no praise can give, and no criticism can take away. That calm is the root of inner strength. But to build that strength, you have to train it. Which leads us to the next lesson: practice voluntary discomfort. 9. Practice voluntary discomfort. I used to avoid discomfort like the plague. I liked my coffee hot, my bed soft, my routine predictable. I worked hard so I could earn comfort, because that's what we're told, right? That the goal of life is ease, security, convenience. But over time, I realized something was missing. The easier life got, the softer I became. And not in a good way. Little things started to bother me more. A cold morning. A delayed flight. A change in plans. And I thought to myself, how did I become so fragile? Then I read a line from Seneca that changed how I saw everything: set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition I feared? At first, it sounded extreme. Why would anyone choose discomfort on purpose? But the more I sat with it, the more it made sense. Discomfort is a teacher. When you practice it on your terms, it loses its power over you. So I started small. I took cold showers not every day, just once a week. I skipped a meal occasionally, not to punish myself, but to prove I didn't need constant fullness. I walked when I could have driven. I slept without a pillow. Tiny acts. Barely noticeable to others. But inside, I felt stronger. Because when you voluntarily face small discomforts, you build the muscle for the big ones. You stop being shocked when life gets hard because you've already trained for it. And something else happens too, you become more grateful. That first hot shower after a cold one feels amazing. That simple meal after skipping lunch feels rich. You stop taking the basics for granted. We live in a world that tells us comfort is everything. But the Stoics knew better. They trained their minds like soldiers. Because they understood, when you practice hardship in peace, you suffer less in war. And at this stage of life after 40, 50, or more, we've all had our share of real challenges. Loss, illness, uncertainty. So why not meet those moments prepared? Voluntary discomfort doesn't make you miserable. It makes you resilient. Not hard. Not bitter. But ready. And that readiness, it gives you the kind of confidence no luxury ever will. So ask yourself today, what's one small discomfort you can choose not to suffer, but to strengthen? Because the stronger you are inside, the less you fear what's outside. And when your foundation is that strong, you begin to live with purpose, not habit. Which brings us to the final lesson: reflect daily. Live deliberately. 10. Reflect daily. Live deliberately. I used to live on autopilot. Wake up. Work. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. Days blended into weeks. Weeks into months. And before I knew it, years had passed. I was doing things, but not really living. I wasn't asking the deeper questions. Was I proud of the man I was becoming? Did I speak with kindness today? Did I let fear drive my choices? I didn't stop to think. Until life made me stop. It was after a health scare in my early 50s. Nothing too serious, but enough to shake me. I sat in the waiting room, staring at the wall, and thought, if this was it, would I feel complete? The answer? No. I'd been too busy surviving to ask if I was truly living. That was the moment I started keeping a small journal. Nothing fancy. Just a few lines each night. Questions like, what did I learn today? What triggered me and why? Did I live according to my values, or did I drift? The first few weeks, it felt awkward. But slowly, it became sacred. A quiet space to meet myself. Not with judgment, but with honesty. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, wrote his reflections in private. Not to impress others, but to anchor himself. His meditations weren't meant for anyone's eyes. And yet, 2,000 years later, they're still changing lives. He wrote, "Let each thing you would do, say, or intend be like that of a dying person." Strong words. But what he meant was this: live with intention. Don't wait for permission. Don't waste time on things that don't matter. Because none of us know how long we have. So I ask you, friend, when was the last time you truly sat with yourself? Not to plan. Not to scroll. But just to reflect. 5 minutes. 10. That's all it takes. But in that space you reconnect with something rare: clarity. You start seeing what really matters. You forgive faster. You let go of what no longer serves you. And you begin to live not by habit, not by fear, but by choice. That is what it means to live deliberately. The Stoics didn't promise an easy life. But they gave us a path to a meaningful one. A life of discipline. Of courage. Of peace. Not perfect but aligned. And it begins with small, daily acts. A breath. A question. A pause. So tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, did I live well today? If the answer is no, there's always tomorrow. And if the answer is yes, smile, and do it again. This is the power of reflection. This is how you become unshakable. You've come this far. And if you're still here, I believe something inside you is ready. Ready to live a little more calmly. A little more bravely. A little more intentionally. The Stoics didn't write books to impress. They wrote to remind themselves of what matters because life is short, and the noise is endless. But the truth is simple, you can't control the world. But you can control your mind. You can choose peace over chaos, discipline over desire, presence over distraction. These 10 Stoic principles are not just ideas. They are anchors, tools, lifelines in a world that never stops shaking. You won't get it perfect. None of us do. But every day is a new chance to realign. So tonight, pause, breathe, and ask yourself gently, who do I want to be tomorrow? Then, take one small step toward that answer. If this video spoke to you, please take a moment to, white heavy checkmark like, so this message reaches more souls who need it. White heavy checkmark subscribe, for more timeless wisdom and quiet strength. White heavy checkmark comment, tell me, which of the 10 principles will you start with today? And if you're ready to go deeper, there's another message waiting for you. Movie camera watch next. 90% of life problems are because you're ignoring these life lessons. Stoicism. Insert link or end screen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time, stay steady, stay strong, and stay true.